Good evening and welcome to our telecast of Just the News. I'm Faye D'Souza. Our first update is on the cyclone Taukte. The Indian Meteorological Department has predicted the cyclone is expected to hit the coast of Gujarat between Porbandar and Mahua between 8 pm and 11:30 pm tonight. It can cause heavy to very heavy rainfall in some parts of the state and extremely powerful winds with speeds of up to 185 kilometers per hour. The Prime Minister called the Gujarat Chief Minister Vijay Rupani and Maharashtra Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray to take stock of preparations made by both of the state governments. Army units have been deployed in Gujarat. The Gujarat government has evacuated over 1 lakh people to safer locations. There are over 100 disaster response teams on field along the west coast. 45 of them are deployed in the state of Gujarat alone. Special arrangements have been made in hospitals treating COVID patients to ensure uninterrupted electricity. The government of Gujarat said hundreds of ambulances are also kept on standby and authorities have closed the ports as a precaution. Maharashtra also evacuated thousands of people living in coastal areas. COVID patients have also been moved to other facilities. The Jumbo facility in BKC was also evacuated as a precaution. In Mumbai, the cyclone triggered very strong winds of 114 kilometers an hour. The city has been pummeled by heavy rains as well today. 6 people were reportedly killed in Maharashtra's Konkan region in separate incidents related to the cyclonic storms, while 3 sailors remained missing after 2 boats sank at sea, according to the PTI. In Mumbai, flight operations at the airport was disrupted for several hours and the Bandra Worli Sea Link was shut until 8 pm. This evening, vaccination drives were also halted temporarily. In Karnataka, 6 people have been killed so far because of the cyclonic storms. 121 villages and 22 taluks have been affected. The storm is also causing massive damage in Goa, destroying homes and electric lines. 2 persons died on Sunday in separate incidents caused by winds triggered by the cyclone. It also apparently damaged 100 homes and blocked highways because of the falling of trees, the Chief Minister said earlier today. Moving on now to updates on COVID, the Health Ministry has said that according to a report by the National AEFI Committee, which is the Adverse Event Following Immunization Committee, cases of bleeding and clotting after vaccination in India are minuscule. Now, this is a committee of experts that are actually studying reactions to the vaccines. This committee has studied 498 cases out of a total 700 cases which are severe events after vaccination, and they've said that only 26 of these have turned out to be a result of blood clots in the bloodstream. The panel also said that Covishield, which is the AstraZeneca Oxford University vaccine, linked by some studies to clotting issues, reported fewer than 0.61 cases per million doses administered. It said that Covaxin, which is the Bharat Biotech vaccination, reported no thromboembolic events at all. In the meantime, the ministry has advised people to be aware of the symptoms for such events, which includes breathlessness, pain in chest or limbs, small red spots or bruising in areas other than the injection site, and persistent abdominal pain. The Delhi High Court today said political leaders should not hoard COVID drugs for political gains when hearing a petition by Dr. Deepak Singh alleging the hoarding of medicines by political leaders seeking a probe into the medical mafia political nexus. Now, BJP MP Gautam Gambhir had earlier announced that he would provide free COVID medication to his constituency in East Delhi. The Delhi High Court observed, and I quote, "Political leaders have no business to hoard stocks. If their intention is to do public good, then they should surrender the same stocks to the Director General of Health Services, who will then distribute them among government hospitals." While speaking about the BJP MP Gautam Gambhir having access to medicines, the High Court asked, and I quote, "How did he get access to such large quantities from chemists during a shortage?" End quote. The court also observed that we expect that such medicines will be surrendered to the Director General of Health Services for the distribution to government hospitals. It has ordered that the Delhi police conduct an investigation for 6 weeks and submit a report. Senior virologist Dr. Shahid Jamil has resigned as the chairperson of the Government Forum of Scientific Advisors. Now, this scientific advisory group, called the Indian SARS-CoV-2 Consortium of Genomics, or known as the INSACOG, was set up by the Indian government in January, which is a grouping of national labs that will use genetic sequencing to track the emergence and the circulation of variants of the virus in India. Now, Dr. Jamil was the chairperson of this group. His resignation comes after he wrote an article in the New York Times where he criticized the government. In the article, very importantly, he said India needs to administer a far higher rate of vaccines than it is doing right now. He said the vaccine program that was started by the government in January this year was, and I quote, hobbled by messages from Indian leadership that the country had conquered the virus and by news from Europe associating fatal blood clots to the vaccination. He also said that testing has been slowed down greatly, which shows a dip in the numbers, but is also causing a lack of crucial data for those studying the variants. He said scientists are facing what he called stubborn resistance to evidence-based policy making. He wrote in his last paragraph of his article, on the 30th of April, over 800 Indian scientists appealed to the Prime Minister demanding access to data that could help them further study, predict and curb the virus. Decision making based on data is yet another casualty as the pandemic in India has spun out of control. The human cost we are enduring will leave a permanent scar. End quote. Before we go any further, I must advise caution for our viewers. The next few stories are extremely distressing. If you are already experiencing anxiety and distress, I recommend you do not watch this video any further. Following bodies that were buried in the sand in Uttar Pradesh's Unnao district, similar reports have now emerged from Prayagraj, or what was earlier called Allahabad. According to the Hindustan Times, a local resident said that at least 400 to 500 bodies have been buried. Locals are also scared because they suspect that these bodies can be of COVID patients and that would worsen the situation in the area. Earlier this month, several decomposed and bloated, half-burnt human bodies were discovered in the rivers Ganga and Yamuna in Uttar Pradesh and in Bihar. UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath has ordered for patrolling of the rivers. Bihar's Water Resources Development Minister Sanjay Kumar Jha has said that the bodies found floating in the river Ganga are not from the state of Bihar and added that this is not our culture. He also said, and I quote, "Do you think this is our culture? It is not. It is a serious matter if bodies have been found floating in the river Ganga, but these bodies are not from Bihar." Ever since we've been seeing this news, we've taken immediate steps and asked officials to take appropriate action. We've placed nets in many places at the Ganga River. I cannot openly say which state the bodies are coming from. The matter is a matter of probe. End quote. In Delhi, the Aam Aadmi Party MLA Atishi Marlena announced yesterday that Delhi is left with only 1 day's worth of stock of Bharat Biotech's Covaxin. She said, since we have exhausted the Covaxin stock for beneficiaries of the age group 18 to 44 category, I beg your pardon, all such vaccine centers have now been shut. We have 6 days worth of Covishield stock left. There has been a sliver of good news though from Delhi. Delhi has reported 4,524 cases in the last 24 hours. The city has now logged less than 5,000 cases for the first time since April 5th. Remember, at its peak, Delhi was reporting more than 20,000 cases a day. It's now down to 4,500. We'll have to watch this number to see if it consistently stays below 5,000. According to the Uttarakhand Health Department, around 1,000 children below the age of 9 years contracted COVID in the last 10 days alone. 2,131 children contracted COVID over the last 1 year, of which 1,618 children were cases reported between May 1st and May 14th. According to the TOI, Uttarakhand's Director General for Health, Dr. Tripti Bahuguna, attributed these cases to the lack of space for isolation for children in households where parents or other members of the family have tested positive. Meanwhile, in Uttarakhand, the first death by black fungus or mucormycosis was reported in AIIMS Rishikesh, where a 36-year-old man died from it on Friday. Mucormycosis or black fungus has now claimed 9 lives in Pimpri Chinchwad's Yashwantrao Chavan Memorial Hospital, with 2 patients losing vision in one of their eyes. 52 people have died of this infection in Maharashtra so far. In Delhi, the Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal has said the government will take necessary steps to prevent and check cases of black fungus. In Karnataka, the Health Minister K. Sudhakar has said the government will expand the treatment of mucormycosis in all government hospitals and medical colleges. Now, this is a rare fungal disease which is now seen to affect those people with severe diabetes who are patients of COVID who are being treated with steroids. If caught on time and treated, the patient can recover, but if not caught on time and treated, it can be fatal. Details on restrictions being announced by states. Punjab has extended its restrictions until the 31st of May as positivity rate continues to be high. Punjab reported 6,950 cases in the last 24 hours and 202 deaths. Andhra Pradesh has extended its curfew until the end of the month as well. Andhra Pradesh reported 24,171 cases. The Delhi High Court has reserved its judgment on the plea to halt the construction of the Central Vista project, which means it has heard all of the arguments and it will now consider and give its judgment, but not today. Senior advocate Siddharth Luthra, who was appearing for the petitioner who had argued that this particular construction carrying on in the middle of the pandemic will result in this being a super spreader because of the number of people working on the construction site, Solicitor General Tushar Mehta represented the central government in this argument. Now, Siddharth Luthra questioned why the Central Vista project is being considered an essential activity when Delhi has imposed a lockdown and banned all construction activity. Solicitor General Tushar Mehta for the Government of India described this petition and this PIL as a facade to disguise something they always wanted to stop under one pretext or the other. Senior counsel Maninder Singh, representing the builder of this project, Shapoji Palonji, said the petitioners are sensationalizing by saying the Central Vista has become a corona hub and people are dying. Once the petitioner, he said, came to know workers are staying on site and they're not being transported, they should have withdrawn the petition, but they have not. Siddharth Luthra disputed the claims that the workers are staying on the site and said the Union of India has resorted to falsehoods, suppression of material facts. There's no bed, there is no bedding. My lords, you will see empty tents on the 24th of April. They expect your lordships to believe this. He also said that the reason why this PIL was filed is because the petitioners were afraid that the dereliction of the government will lead to an Auschwitz in the gardens of Delhi, referring to concentration camps in Europe. To which Mr. Mehta of the Government of India took umbrage to the Central Vista project being referred to as a concentration camp. The court heard all of the parties and has reserved its judgment today. News coming in right now from across the world. Israeli warplanes conducted dozens of heavy airstrikes at several locations of the Gaza Strip today. These strikes are some of the heaviest seen since the fighting began a week ago. 42 Palestinians were killed in the airstrikes just today. Israel said it hit facilities belonging to the militant group Hamas and several commanders' homes, but main roads and power lines and schools and buildings have been damaged. According to a report by Al Jazeera, hospitals in the Gaza Strip are running out of resources. Their corridors, their departments, their administration rooms are now filled with beds and mattresses. Electricity now comes and goes within 1 or 3 hours at best. And this has led to a further crisis for the hospitals because their generators are now running out of fuel. Altogether, 198 people, including 58 children, have been killed in the Gaza Strip since the violence began a week ago. More than 1,300 Palestinians have been wounded. Now, as the exchange of fire continues, the Turkish president has asked Pope Francis to support sanctions against Israel, saying that the Palestinians will continue to be massacred as long as the international community doesn't punish Israel. China on Monday renewed calls to the US to play a crucial role in ending the conflict in Gaza. However, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu defended the attacks on a Gaza tower, an office tower which collapsed. This was a tower that housed the Associated Press and Al Jazeera offices. And they were given a warning of half an hour to clear the building before the building was attacked, targeted and brought down. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu said that that was a legitimate target because it hosted a Palestinian terrorist intelligence office. In the meantime, US President Joe Biden has reiterated the United States' support to Israel's right to defend itself. India has also made a statement. India has called for immediate de-escalation of the situation at the first public United Nations Security Council meeting that was held after the fighting began about a week ago. India's permanent representative and ambassador to the UN, T.S. Tirumurthy, told the Security Council immediate de-escalation is the need of the hour to arrest any further slide towards the brink. We urge both sides to show extreme restraint. He also said, and I quote, "I reiterate India's strong support to the just Palestinian cause and its unwavering commitment to the two-state solution." Singapore is all set to shut schools from Wednesday as authorities warned that the new COVID strains are affecting more children. Singapore's health minister said the B1617 strain, which was first detected in India, appeared to affect children more. And on Sunday, Singapore confirmed 38 COVID cases, the highest daily number since mid-September. Cases included 4 children linked to a cluster in a tuition center. News from the world of science and technology right now. Scientists in US's Florida have found that sharks possess an internal navigation system similar to GPS that allows them to use the Earth's magnetic forces to travel long distances with great accuracy. This comes after several researchers have been intrigued by how sharks can travel thousands of kilometers and wind up in the same spot. The lead author of the study has said that we know for some time that they have the ability to detect magnetic fields, that this is the first time that it's tested successfully that they use these abilities to infer their location and sort of garner a map-like formation from the magnetic field. A quick update from the world of sports as well. Liverpool's Alisson Becker has become the first ever goalkeeper to score a competitive goal for the club in its 129-year history. He scored a sensational header during extra time of the second half to steer Liverpool to a 2-1 victory over West Brom in the Premier League. Overall, he's the 6th goalkeeper to score a goal in the Premier League. One piece of positive information before we leave you for the day. In Andhra Pradesh's Vijayawada, Margam Foundation is providing free food to people in home isolation. All that a person needs to do is call the helpline a day in advance and the food will be delivered to their doorstep. The founder of Margam Foundation, Lakshmi Annapurna, aptly named she is, started the initiative after she was in home isolation for 2 weeks and couldn't cook for herself during that period. Currently, the organization is providing 250 meals to COVID patients and their family members. Of course, the details of this organization is in the description of this video, where you can reach out to them. That's a wrap on the news right now from us. A couple of things: stay home, stay safe, stay out of trouble. Leave us suggestions in words of encouragement. It helps us work harder. Tell us how we can improve this broadcast for you. Details of all the stories that I have just read out are in the description of our YouTube page. So if you want to read more about any of them, you can find the full stories there. Thank you for watching. Good night.